"You see that?" I said, pointing to the silver bellies glinting in the morning sun. "That's what happens when you play God with other people's lakes, Linda." The words came out sharper than I meant, but the smell of chemicals burned in my nose, and the sight of those dead fish bobbing like confetti after a funeral had already stripped the filter off my mouth. The air was too still, too quiet for a Saturday morning. Usually you could hear the soft plunk of my line in the water, or the whir of a lawnmower starting 3 houses down. But that day, just silence. A sticky, chemical silence. Linda Carraway stood on the boardwalk in her wide-brimmed sun hat, arms folded across her lemon-yellow blouse. Her lips pursed just enough to suggest dismay for the neighbor's sake, but her eyes flickered with something colder. Satisfaction. Power. The kind of expression you see on someone who's been waiting for the chance to say, "I told you so," without using words. "Such a shame," she murmured, loud enough for the 2 women from the landscaping committee to hear. "Nature can be so unpredictable." Unpredictable. That was one word for it. Another might have been intentional. The first week I moved into Maplewood Lakes, I thought the HOA was a minor inconvenience. Occasional letters about mailbox colors and trash can placement. The usual suburban nonsense. Then came the incident with my fishing rod. I'd been at the lake one morning, minding my business, when Linda appeared on the boardwalk like a cartoon villain emerging from mist. "Mr. Caldwell," she said, drawing out my name as if it were a stain on her tongue. "Our community guidelines prohibit any recreational use of the retention pond." "It's a lake," I corrected her. She smiled tightly. "It's a decorative water feature." That was the start of it. A months-long feud that spiraled out of control faster than the HOA newsletter's circulation. First came the letters, official-looking envelopes stamped with "Notice of Non-Compliance." Then the fines, absurd ones. $50 for unauthorized equipment storage because my tackle box was visible from the walking path. Linda even tried to introduce an amendment at the next meeting banning unsanctioned leisure activity. I still remember her smug tone as she read it aloud while the rest of us sat in those uncomfortable folding chairs at the clubhouse. But the kicker, the amendment passed. By 1 vote. Her own, naturally. So I stopped fishing. I let her win, at least on paper, but I still walked by the lake every morning, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the water. Maybe I did it to spite her. Maybe to remind myself the place still belonged to all of us, even if her signature was on every rule. Then came this morning. At first, I thought the glittering in the water was sunlight catching ripples. Then I realized it was scales. Fish, dozens of them, drifting sideways, their mouths open like they were still gasping for help. The water had gone from its usual murky green to a strange bluish sheen, too bright, too artificial. And the smell. Bitter, chemical, like a mix between bleach and burnt plastic. By the time I got to the boardwalk, a small crowd had gathered. Mrs. Donnelly from Lot 14 whispered to her husband, "Maybe the filter system broke again." Someone else suggested it was a fertilizer spill. Linda just nodded solemnly, pretending to care while carefully avoiding eye contact with me. I crouched near the edge, dipping my fingers in the water. It felt slick, not like pond water, like soap. My gut twisted. I'd worked maintenance for 10 years before retiring, enough to recognize the residue of pesticide runoff, the kind used by landscapers who wanted fast results and didn't care about side effects. "Don't touch that, Mr. Caldwell," Linda snapped suddenly. "You'll contaminate the sample." "The sample?" I raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. You knew to take one already?" Her smile wavered for half a second before returning, tighter this time. "I'm just being cautious. The HOA board is committed to protecting our community's image and its property values." "Sure," I said. "Wouldn't want the fish ruining anyone's view." A few neighbors exchanged glances. You could feel it. The tension shifting, curiosity sparking in the group. Someone asked if it was safe for their dog to drink the water. Someone else said their sprinklers pulled from the same system. Linda waved them off, promising it was all under control, that professionals were handling it. But when I followed her gaze, I noticed something odd. A white pickup parked near the clubhouse, its tailgate down, a stack of empty chemical drums inside. The label was clear as day. Algae Blast 42P, not for use in natural waterways. And just like that, the story wrote itself. I stood up, brushing my hands on my jeans, my heart pounding. Not from fear, but from the thrill of knowing. She hadn't done this for the community. She'd done it for control. For me. Because she couldn't stand the idea of losing even a symbolic battle over her lake. The air buzzed with murmurs now. Phones out, photos snapping, videos recording. Linda's perfect little HOA facade was cracking, one fish at a time. I leaned closer to her, voice low enough only she could hear. "Looks like your water feature's having a rough day." She glared at me, lips tightening to a thin line. "Be very careful what you imply, Mr. Caldwell." "Oh, I'm not implying," I said. "I'm observing." A sudden gust of wind carried the smell stronger this time, sharp enough to make people back away. Somewhere, a child started crying. Linda turned on her heel and stormed off toward the clubhouse, phone pressed to her ear, already spinning whatever story she'd tell the board. I watched her go, the hem of her linen pants fluttering in the breeze, and thought, she has no idea what she's just started. Because if there's one thing I've learned about HOA presidents like Linda Carraway, it's that they only stay untouchable until the water turns against them. And judging by the color of that lake, it already had. "You think this is your neighborhood?" Linda said, leaning across the HOA conference table, her perfume choking the air between us. "You live here. I run it." If she'd been holding a scepter, the moment would have been complete. Instead, she had a stack of color-coded folders and a manicured finger tapping against one, rhythmically, like a ticking clock counting down to my patience running out. The rest of the board sat in their usual daze, sipping lukewarm coffee, nodding like they were extras in her suburban monarchy. I didn't know whether to laugh or salute. After the fish fiasco, the neighborhood buzzed like a hornet's nest. Everyone wanted answers, but the only thing Linda offered was a carefully worded statement pinned to the community bulletin board. The recent aquatic irregularities were due to an unplanned reaction to eco-safe algae treatment. The HOA is committed to maintaining the beauty and safety of our shared spaces. Eco-safe. That phrase made me laugh out loud in my kitchen. The smell of bleach still lingered near the lake, and the shared space looked more like a toxic soup than a scenic view. But Linda's wording had just enough corporate polish to sound credible to the untrained ear. Still, people were uneasy. Dogs wouldn't drink from the grass sprinklers. Kids stopped riding their bikes around the boardwalk. Even the gossiping ladies from the fitness group started avoiding eye contact when Linda walked by. You could feel it, her control slipping, one whispered doubt at a time. So, naturally, she doubled down. 2 days later, a notice appeared in every mailbox. Emergency HOA meeting. Attendance strongly encouraged. The paper was thick, expensive, the kind that made you feel guilty throwing it away. Linda loved presentation almost as much as power. The meeting was in the clubhouse under the flickering fluorescent lights that made everyone look slightly sickly. I sat in the back, arms crossed, watching her take the floor like she was giving a TED Talk on how to gaslight a neighborhood. "First and foremost," she began, "I want to thank everyone for their concern regarding our community's lake. I assure you the situation is fully under control. We've partnered with Greenscape Environmental Solutions, a trusted firm, to ensure proper remediation." Behind her, a projector displayed slides of calm blue lakes and smiling families. Stock photos. I almost applauded. A hand shot up from the front row. Mr. Donnelly, bless him. "Linda," he said, voice shaking, "are you saying Greenscape was the one who applied the treatment?" Linda smiled. "They were contracted to maintain our landscaping." "Yes, but the algae bloom forced an expedited service. It's standard procedure. I raised my hand. Funny, I spoke to Greenscape this morning. Their owner said they haven't done any lake treatments in months. You could feel the oxygen leave the room. Linda froze, then tilted her head in that way she does when she's pretending to be patient with a child. Perhaps you misunderstood, Mr. Caldwell. No misunderstanding, I said. He even emailed me the last invoice. Mowing, edging, and mulch delivery. No mention of chemicals. Her smile twitched. I'm afraid you're not authorized to access those records. HOA documents are confidential. Public, actually, I countered, pulling a folded paper from my pocket. According to Section 4C of the Community Bylaws, any financial transaction involving HOA funds must be made available to homeowners upon request. That got a few murmurs from the crowd. Linda's hand fluttered near her pearl necklace. A tell, I'd noticed whenever she was cornered. This is highly inappropriate, she said tightly. We're not here to debate conspiracy theories. Then what are we here for? To applaud another cover story? Her eyes locked on mine. You should be careful, Mr. Caldwell. Sometimes curiosity looks a lot like harassment. There it was, the HOA threat, wrapped in faux concern and legal undertones. I didn't respond. I just watched as she moved to the next agenda item, pretending the room wasn't buzzing like an overloaded transformer. After the meeting, a few neighbors cornered me outside by the parking lot lights. They whispered questions, half afraid she might be listening. One woman, Tina from Lot 22, said she'd seen the Greenscape truck at the clubhouse late at night the week before the fish died. The driver wasn't wearing company gear, she said, just plain overalls, no logo. That was all I needed. I spent the next 2 days digging, literally and digitally. HOA invoices, board minutes, vendor records. Most were boilerplate fluff, but then I found it. A payment authorization form, signed by Linda herself, for chemical control service, expedited treatment billed to a subcontractor named Greenscape Property Support, LLC. Not the same company, not even close. The address traced back to a P.O. box in town, one registered to a landscaping firm owned by Linda's cousin. It wasn't illegal, technically, just suspiciously convenient, especially since the payment amount, $4,800, wasn't reflected anywhere in the monthly budget summary. I printed everything, highlighted names, circled dates. By the time I was done, my dining table looked like a detective board from a true crime show. I waited until the next HOA office hour to confront her. She was at her usual post in the clubhouse, sipping sparkling water and pretending to work on her tablet. Linda, I said, dropping the folder onto her table. She glanced at it, unimpressed. You're becoming obsessive, Mr. Caldwell. Funny, I'd call it civic engagement. She flipped through the pages lazily, then closed them with a sigh. You really think this is some grand conspiracy? That I personally arranged a chemical attack on the lake? Honestly, I don't have time for your drama. Then how do you explain the payment? She leaned back, a smirk creeping onto her face. I don't, because I don't owe you an explanation. The board approved it. End of story. Her tone shifted then, soft, almost patronizing. You shouldn't worry about things above your pay grade, dear. This is HOA business. That word, dear, hit harder than I'd expected. It wasn't kindness, it was dismissal dressed as charm. The kind of tone people use before slamming a door in your face. I picked up the folder, met her eyes, and said, You're right, but if it's above my pay grade, I wonder what the County Environmental Agency would think. For a moment, her smile cracked. Just a flicker. Then she laughed, that perfect little rehearsed trill that made your skin crawl. You do what you have to do, Mr. Caldwell, she said, but remember, you live here. Her meaning lingered in the air like the faint whiff of chlorine drifting from the lake outside. As I walked out of the clubhouse, I noticed a new sign posted near the path. Notice. Lake area closed until further notice. Do not approach the water. The ink was still wet, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Linda Caraway wasn't done cleaning up her mess. She was just changing the method. "You poisoned the neighborhood, Linda," I said, setting a half-full glass of cloudy tap water on the table between us. "Congratulations! You finally made your mark." Her face went pale, the lipstick perfect confidence cracking just enough for me to see the panic underneath. The smell hit first, chlorine mixed with something metallic, faint but undeniable. The whole room carried it, like the lake had followed us indoors, seeping into every faucet and coffee pot in Maplewood Lakes. At first, people thought it was a coincidence. Maybe the pipes were old, or the water softener had gone rogue. But then came the complaints. Emails, group texts, even a few late-night posts on the community Facebook page before Linda had them deleted. "My kids say the water smells weird." "Anyone else's coffee tasting like bleach?" "Could this have something to do with the lake closure?" That last one started it, the whisper campaign. By the third week, whispers had turned to shouting. Bottled water sales tripled at the local grocery store. Neighbors who used to obsess over lawn symmetry now lined their driveways with empty-gallon jugs and complaints. And through it all, Linda kept insisting everything was within acceptable limits. Her acceptable didn't seem to match anyone else's. I'd kept my head down, publicly at least. Privately, I was connecting dots. The HOA's private well system fed both the irrigation and tap water for homes bordering the lake, something Linda probably forgot when she arranged that expedited algae treatment. Once the chemicals seeped past the retaining barrier, the contamination had an open invitation to every sink in the subdivision. Irony doesn't usually come this poetic. The first official sign of chaos arrived on a Friday evening. A water quality update email, typed in Linda's signature pastel stationery font, chirpily read, "We've noticed a slight odor due to mineral imbalance. Please refrain from unnecessary speculation. Testing is ongoing." Translation: "We're drowning, but please don't panic. It's bad for property values." By Sunday, 3 families had packed overnight bags and left for hotels. Someone called the county health department. By Monday morning, they were here. 2 inspectors in khaki uniforms, clipboards in hand, collecting samples from the lake and the clubhouse's kitchen sink. Linda greeted them with her best Stepford smile, offering muffins and bottled water. Not tap, of course. I watched from my porch, pretending to read the paper while the inspectors walked the perimeter. One of them pointed at the warning sign still posted near the lake. "Do not approach the water." He said something I couldn't hear, but Linda's shoulders stiffened, her smile faltering just enough for me to enjoy my coffee a little more. Later that evening, she showed up at my door. No entourage, no clipboard. Just her, looking like someone who hadn't slept in days. "I suppose you think this is funny," she said quietly. "Not funny," I said. "Predictable." Her eyes darted toward the street where a group of neighbors stood talking in hushed tones. "You started this hysteria." "No," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "You started it when you dumped poison into a water system you didn't understand." She took a shaky breath, straightened her shoulders, and whispered, "If you go public with this, you'll destroy the community." "Linda," I said, "you already did." She glared at me like I'd broken an unspoken rule. Maybe I had, the one that said you don't stand up to the queen of the cul-de-sac. But watching her walk back down my driveway, head high, perfume trailing behind her like smoke after a fire, I realized something. She wasn't retreating. She was regrouping. The next morning, a new notice appeared on every door. Effective immediately, the HOA will be taking temporary control of all communications regarding the water issue. Residents are advised not to speak to outside authorities without board approval. That last line made me laugh out loud. It was pure Linda. Try to choke the truth with paperwork. But it was too late. Word had spread faster than her printer could run. The county had already posted a water advisory online, complete with lab results showing trace amounts of industrial pesticide. The group chat was chaos. Half the neighborhood wanted her fired. The other half wanted her arrested. Someone even floated the idea of a recall vote. I sipped my bottled water and watched the cul-de-sac drown in its own irony. The night was still until footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate, ending at my driveway. Through the blinds, a flashlight beam cut toward the poisoned lake. Linda, desperate, cornered, and heading straight for the water that would finally undo her.